So my preparation was over, and now it was time for me to attend the ayahuasca ceremony itself. I started the preparations with no real grasp about what lay ahead, but through my 2-week-long preparations, I started to, at least I believed, get an idea about what was to come. But I was wrong. Nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what I was to experience. The singing and mocking by gods, visions and feelings of ecstasy and love, a shaman who almost had to call an ambulance, and a young woman who desperately fought for her sanity for hours on end. This and more are all parts of my first ayahuasca ceremony, my first ayahuasca experience, a true story which I will now share with you. My story starts as I'm driving down a long and overgrown gravel road towards the location of the ritual. As I keep driving down, I actually start to worry, just slightly, about what I have gotten myself into. What will be down at the end of the road? Will it be this weird, trashy kind of location, which I've seen so many times before in the countryside? Are the people at the ritual like those, weirdos that I sometimes see online? These thoughts of doubt swirled through my mind for a few moments. But as I got closer, as the end of the road was approaching, my doubts started to fade away. I've made a choice. At the end of the day, I made a choice, a commitment to explore this path, whatever it may hold. And so, with anticipation and a hint of uncertainty, I proceeded forward. I drove into a clearing surrounded by trees, parked my car, grabbed my stuff, and started to walk down the last few meters to the compound where the ritual was to take place. It didn't take long for me to realize just how wrong my initial doubts were. This place was truly something special. As I ventured further into the compound, a magnificent, and I really mean magnificent, sight greeted me. A grand tree stood proudly in the center, adorned with a breathtaking carving of a nature goddess. To the right of this majestic tree, a charming white cottage stood, serving as the home for the family who owned this enchanting place. And beyond the trees, nestled in the backdrop, loomed this spatial hall intended for various spiritual activities, including ayahuasca ceremonies. I walked around the hall looking for this shaman guy who would be the one facilitating the ritual. I ended up finding him at the back where he was having a smoke. And no, it was not a normal type of tobacco. He took me into the hall, showed me where my spot would be, and my spot consisted of a mattress with a blanket and also a puke bucket next to it. All in all, it was a good place. It smelled nice, looked nice, and it also felt nice, which for sure was comforting. The shaman confirmed that it would only be me and a woman joining this ritual along with him, which I honestly found great, as the idea of about 8 random people laying next to each other, experiencing weird stuff, puking and whatnot didn't sound too enticing. But me and the shaman small talked for a while until we saw a woman walking around in the yard. It was a very, a very posh woman. Smart car, smart clothing, fit, and a lot of cool tattoos. She did look a bit distraught though. But the shaman went and got her, brought her into the hall, and showed her her space. Here she also shared that the reason she looked a bit shaken was that on the way here, a young kid had crashed into her car on a bicycle. So she was a bit freaked out still. But no problem. Now she was here, and she was ready for a nice, relaxing ayahuasca ritual. For a while we sat, the 3 of us, just chilling, small talked. But as the clock approached 9 p.m, the shaman informed us that now was time to get ready, because the ritual had to start at 9 p.m. exactly. The lady and I laid down on our mattresses, and the shaman took his seat at the end of the room, where he laid out plastic bottles in front of him containing the ayahuasca itself. The bottle almost looked menacing, as the ayahuasca almost looked like the blackest mud I had ever seen. But okay, hopefully it tasted better than it looked. I was very wrong on this one, by the way. As we were laying down, the shaman put on a guided meditation on the large stereo, which we were supposed to follow for 30 minutes. Being no stranger to meditation, I laid down, closed my eyes, and did my best to let go as I focused on the words presented in the guided meditation. As I was laying there, to be honest, I started to wonder what the shaman was doing. Why were we just listening to this random guy talking on the speaker? Or whatever. I did what I had to do. I followed the instructions given. So I laid there, I meditated, and then after 30 minutes, he informed us that it was time to drink the ayahuasca. Cool, I thought, and eagerly opened my eyes and sat up waiting for it to be my turn to be presented with my cup. Luckily, I didn't have to wait for long. As the shaman approached with my cup, I took it, and it smelled a bit weird, a bit sharp, hard to place the smell. It was really weird. But I didn't think too much about it, so I took it and I drank it. It tasted like a mix between rotting licorice and mud. Not the best of things at all. But okay, I tried worse. So I drank it and was told to lay down again and keep meditating to the guy on the speaker. Alright, so I did. And as I lay there, I could for sure feel this strange liquid physically move around in my body, which was weird. And not nice weird, but okay. And after a while, I could feel my body starting to relax a lot. But besides that, that was it. So I was laying there going like, this just feels like a normal meditation with a little bit of extra. Is this really it? But I kept waiting. But nothing really happened. And to be honest, I was starting to wonder if this ayahuasca wasn't as amazing and crazy as some people had claimed. But luckily, after a while, he asked if we felt we needed another cup. I eagerly sat up and said, yes, I had not prepared for 2 weeks just for a little bit of extra numbness when meditating. I was here for an experience. So me and the lady took our second cup and drank it. And oh my god, that taste, where the first cup had been unpleasant in taste, but that was it. Now it was as if the taste just set up camp in my throat and the intensity of the taste had just doubled. But okay, I managed to collect myself and went back to meditating. And now that weird drink was really having fun traveling around my body. Man, it felt weird. And the numbness of my body even more crazy. But nothing else really happened, besides it feeling nice and all. That was until I opened my eyes. I opened my eyes, and to my big surprise, it looked like there was a water surface above me, covering the whole room. Like I was laying at the bottom of a lake, staring up. I blinked and went, what the F? I sat up and could start to really feel the effects. But I just knew I had to take one more cup, then I would be where I should be. So I asked the shaman if that was okay, which it was. He prepared another cup for me and a quarter of a cup for the lady. Number 1 cup was okay. Number 2 cup was disgusting. And the 3rd cup, I literally dreaded the taste of. But I did what I had to do, and I forced it down. But there was just this one problem. It didn't really go down. With the 2nd cup I created a camp in my throat. The 3rd one turned the camp into a blazing fireworks festival in my mouth, and I was struggling hard with accepting the intense flavor of rotten licorice and mud covering my mouth. But I managed to stay somewhat in balance, at least for now. Laid back down and started to meditate. Try to meditate. The damn flavor just wouldn't fade away. it was almost as if it got more intense, and the feeling it created in my stomach felt like a living snake was just crawling around inside me. I had heard tales from both dear friends and the internet about participating in ayahuasca, resulting in immense volumes of vomit being produced, and well, diarrhea. And I started to fear that my tale would at least include one of those things. But as a spiritual person, I had a long time ago learned the importance of surrender, and was also instructed by the shaman to not fight whatever ayahuasca wanted to invoke. So I slowly sat and raised my hand, telling the shaman that it was soon time for me to vomit, and well, if it was okay if I puked here in the puke bucket. And yes, I'm aware about the odd thing in asking if I'm allowed to use the puke bucket to puke in, but it's important to understand that right now I am super confused. I have no clue about what is to happen. I've already drunk 3 cups, and the lady over there is laying there meditating, and well, everything is just weird. And while I'm still sane, at least I think so, everything is weird. But he said yes, please use the bucket, and that puking is a very normal part of any ayahuasca ritual. So I laid down, trying to meditate, but in reality, mostly counting down the seconds until I would have the pleasure to taste ayahuasca again, with the added flavor of my stomach acid, among other things. And it didn't take long until I quickly had to sit up and elegantly, I like to believe so anyway, I leaned to the side of my mattress and let out 3 streams of thick black mud colored vomit into the bucket. That wasn't too bad, I thought, as I gained my composure and also now realized it had turned dark outside. It felt pretty good now, and I laid back down to meditate, and as soon as I closed my eyes, everything changed, and I got transported to a place I had never been to before, and that is almost impossible to describe. I closed my eyes, and now I found myself in a room on a space-like station, but it was like a retro gaming space station room, if such a thing exists. And it was awesome. There was an arcade, a NES system, cool neon posters, and some cool anime figurines all over. And the color of the metal wall was this cool, subtle pink, orange-ish color. And I went, wow, this is so cool. So I guess this is what everyone is so crazy about. That was the thoughts floating around in my head. It might be important to know, I've never really tried anything crazy before. Yes, I smoked weed a few times in my adult life. I hardly ever drink alcohol, and yeah, that's about it. I had heard stories on the internet about mushrooms and so on, but that's about it. I floated around in the cool room, but then the shaman started to chant and make noises with his chakapa. At least that's what I think is the right word for it. And it was as if a wind blew my retro gaming area away and replaced it with complete darkness. Initially I was kind of disappointed, but that quickly faded as I focused on the chant of the shaman, and suddenly these beautiful beams of neon light started to appear high above me. Orange, pink, blue, green, so many colors, and they were so clear. And also my body just felt so relaxed. Suddenly these structural images also started to appear, which were almost alien in nature. Black, weird, moving curved walls with these alien patterns on them that had just moved past each other while the neon light danced between them. It was almost as if a weird spaceship was being built around me, as I started to float around in this odd construct, just being in complete awe about the whole spectacle. I cannot recall how long this went on, and while I was floating around in this construct, I sometimes opened my eyes just to see what went on around me in the so-called real world. The shaman had started to sometimes stand up and ignite some incense, which created these large flares of fire within my closed eye vision, and was walking around with the flame. Everything was just weird though. It was as if the shadows were dancing and lamps moving. But again, I had no idea what was going on or what he was doing. So I closed my eyes again and went back to this crazy, beautiful spaceship that was being built. And here I floated around for a while until I started to get a strong sense of falling and falling and falling. I had tried this sense one time when I smoked weed. Back then I had feared that feeling and fought it. But this time I just accepted it, as well as I accepted everything else going on. And suddenly the falling sensation stopped. And I got this intense feeling of what I can only describe as love through my body. But I really cannot emphasize enough how poor the word love feels to describe the feeling in my body. It was a feeling I could never had imagined, and it just continued to rise in potency. So I'm laying there, eyes closed, not knowing much of what is going on around me, and I have this intense feeling of love through my body, and it's then I realize that I had not been falling, but something had been rising next to me. So I looked up and I saw this huge pillar of energy and crystals and light, infinite in size and scale, reaching out into the universe. And as soon as I looked up, the shaman put on this most beautiful prayer song with this amazing female vocal. And it completely merged with my experience, as a huge visual song voice boomed in the most loving and warming way from the top of the pillar down towards me. Like the most mighty star you could imagine, singing a song of infinite love through your soul. Almost as like, so hard to describe, it's like the most loving fire that just passes through every cell of your body, wave after wave. I will not lie, this was the most amazing feeling I could have ever imagined, yet alone feel, and it just kept going. It just kept singing, and I could talk with the pillar, with this singing star. And soon I learned her name, the Great Mother. Now, I won't get into great details about what she shared with me, but there is one experience with her I would like to share. As I was laying there listening to her song, my body felt amazing. Well, except for the three spots where I have some old injuries which I'm struggling a bit with, such as my lower back and my shoulder. I was wondering why I could feel these spots. What was the meaning with that? And then suddenly it was as if these 3 spots got visualized in front of me like glowing boxes. And then she, the Great Mother, directed her love to them, and they vanished in this beautiful light. She finished off by telling me she loved everything about me, including my scars, my flaws, and injuries, and I should try and do the same. Because, well, to be honest, normally I try to get rid of them. In essence, I was fighting these injuries. But already here, I learned to shift my perspective into, well, a more caring view of my body and all of it. And as a result, to this day, I've already changed my lifestyle quite a lot. But she was not the only, let's call it, God I met in this window of time. In the background of everything I was experiencing, there was this cute, butt-mocking laughter. And it came every time I started asking all these weird questions and thinking all my thoughts. And yes, I think and reflect a lot, also to a fault. And every time I wondered why I was thinking about what I was thinking about, they giggled. So I asked the Great Mother who that was, and she said it was the Norse, the ladies of fate. And they always find it funny when spirits believe, such as human spirits, that they are responsible for their own thoughts, their own essence. And she explained that even the gods were subject to the Norse power, including her, and many gods, without mentioning names, was having a very hard time accepting that. She suggested I follow her approach to the whole thing, which was to stop asking so many questions you will never receive a satisfying answer to anyway, and focus on what you can do about it. But back to the experience. the ritual, which in total lasted 12 hours, and we are now only like 3 hours in. So we have quite a while to go. And throughout the whole thing, she, the Great Mother, kept talking and guiding me. The next chapter of the ritual started when the shaman put on some, let's call it Christian chapel music. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And first I resisted the music. I was like, why this music? This doesn't fit an ayahuasca ceremony. But I quickly learned that was the intent. It was there to expose my own, let's say, weird and maybe unfair thoughts and confront them with the aid of the Great Mother. After 2 hours of that, the shaman switched to the next part of the ritual, where he put on some kind of Viking music. You know, a bit darker, heavy drums, all that good stuff. And while my internal experience continued to be great and nice, in all the right ways, what is just as interesting is what then happened around me. If you remember, I was not alone at the ritual. There was the shaman, me, and then the lady. The lady had been doing fine so far. Nothing too crazy. She was chilling, relaxing, some sparkles and cute colors, but nothing crazy. All was dandy. But as soon as the music switched to Viking, it was like a switch in her experience. She felt fear. She even later told the shaman that when the music came on, she thought he was summoning demons or something. Point being, she felt fear. And it was like she got thrown into another dimension. And there was just no way out. While I was laying on the other side of the room, hanging out with the Great Mother, she describes demons started to tearing her body and mind apart. She got scared and she fought to resist it, to try and control herself. She was a born fighter, so she fought in her spirit. At this point in the ritual, I also, for some reason, enjoyed a lot checking what was going on around us. I again saw the shaman walk around using the smoke of incense around the entrance to the hall. It was weird, almost as if he was afraid. And around in the room itself, it looked like the Ragnarok scene from Vikings. Fire all over, waves of shadow and smoke, drums were beating, shaman running around igniting incense, flashes of random light and fire. It was wild. It was so wild, I clearly remember starting to laugh to myself, because it was just so crazy. At this time, I had no idea what was going on with the lady, but that quickly changed, as I could start feeling that something was just going on. The shaman also felt it and went to her side for support. And yeah, I could feel it was bad. And at some point, she, with a very mellow voice, said, "I can't handle it anymore," to the shaman. And then she started puking. Hard. Very hard. And when done, she collapsed to the mattress and started shaking intensely. Like in a bad horror movie. I really felt bad for her. But knew right now she was just facing her inner demons. She had to learn some really hard lessons. And there was nothing I could do to help. Even more so in my state. It was all up to her and the shaman. So all I did was lay there and I guess try to project my spirit to her as much as possible to support her in spirit. Her fight lasted like 5 hours. 5 hours where she was laying there on her mattress, flipping through dimensions, meeting horrors beyond imagination, truly learning the meaning of fear. She took turns violently puking, then laying on the mattress, shaking, begging for it to stop. The shaman next to her holding her hand, chanting the best he could for the spirits to come and support her. He even tried to call his master, a shaman from Peru, to come and support. And when he came, the only thing he told him was that this was between her and ayahuasca. She had something to learn, and there wasn't anything he could do, no matter how much he wanted. The next day, the shaman even told us that he was on the verge of calling an ambulance. He was that afraid. Furthermore, while supporting the young lady, He also had to protect the room from spirits inviting themselves. I of course had no idea about this as the ritual was ongoing. All I saw was him doing a lot of different things. I had no idea why. But yeah, he later told us that it was as if a portal had opened in the room, and outside the building he could see shadows trying to enter from all sides. So he had, under the whole ritual, desperately been trying to find ways to keep them out. Lights had started blinking and acting in odd ways. He himself, the shaman, had even started to fear certain doors to the halls because, well, this was crazy, very crazy, even for him. For me, the remainder of the night went with still talking with the Great Mother and other spirits, hearing voices, feeling love. All in all, amazing things, all the while I tried to support the lady as much as I could. It was a crazy night, and it lasted for 12 hours straight with no sleep, just all crazy. And when it had calmed down, we sat together and reflected upon the craziness. And here I learned something that really shook me. The young lady had been to an ayahuasca ritual 2 times before, with many other people. And normally it was just chill time for 8 hours. You felt some sparkles, you felt relaxed, just a chill time overall. And when the 8 hours were done, people would eat some fruit and drive home. The shaman also confirmed that this was a normal experience. So here we were, 12 hours in, still shaking and feeling the effects of ayahuasca. Our minds and bodies shaking, tired beyond imagination, and with minds that were completely blown apart, including the shamans. He also shared with us that this was by far the most intense experience he had ever tried, and it was really a lesson learned for him also. The lady had to cancel the 3 appointments she had planned after the ceremony was done, because, well, normally that would be no problem, but not this time. When my wife came to pick me up, the lady chose to just stay alone in the hall for a while, because mentally she was now, in this weird way, happy for her experience. Her body just needed more time. So this was my first ayahuasca ritual. It was crazy, and it blew all my expectations out of the water. And I'm so happy I went. I will never forget that day in my life, but it was also a very powerful experience. And while one day it might be a chill, feel-good experience, when Goddess Ayahuasca feels it's time, yeah, then she might take you through a darkness which you cannot imagine. So if you ask me, should you go? I would not like to answer that question, as it really is up to you. Ayahuasca is not a thing you do to have fun. It's a ritual which aims to teach you something, and sometimes the lessons can be quite hard. So do you feel a calling in your spirit that it is time for you to join an ayahuasca ritual? Then for sure do it and learn from my experience. Don't fight the ayahuasca. Be humble. Accept the lessons learned and don't try to be in control. If you don't feel it's time for you to try, then don't. Ayahuasca is no joke and should be treated with the deepest respect. Anyways, that was my story. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Vi ses næste gang. Hej hej.